Toe whātalo whātu i le mamalo le tātou atu nuu i le nei au auli, ma lo le soifua ma le langi mamā. Ia i o loo maua mai le nei whaasala launga tu sao, tau tu al si ufonga le lau mua i le nei au auli. Ia o le pol kalame mo le tupulanga tala vau e peo na masani ai i aso wharei le taitasi. O le pol kalame whaapitoa mo le atina e ina, ma le whaalileia o langa ma filfilinga nai o tātou walo ma whanau, e le ngata i au te aroa, ia e whaapea fo i Samoa ma le lalulangi atoa. O te fia e whaeilo atu le malo whaapitoa le Nepal kalame le tamaitai i a Feagaimaalii Soti mapu, Miss Sāmoa luafe luas fulmalima luafe luas fulmaleono. O mawal nei ava noa e talanoa ai, ia nisi fo i mata upu, tā ua e le ngata mo talavou. Ai mai se mo le tūlanga o loo iai nei, le tausala o Samoa. Tā lofa lava, and welcome Miss Sāmoa Feagaimaalii. I am deeply honored for the opportunity to interview you on our youth program this afternoon. I have long admired your work and your advocacy for the youth and women of Samoa throughout your service and your career. How are you?
Manuia lava whaptai Kesila, how are you?
Thank you again for accepting the invitation to join us on our youth program this afternoon, Whawhaftai Lava. Can you share with us your journey as a young Tamaitai Samoa growing up in the islands? What inspired you to become a teacher and later on enter the Miss Sāmoa pageant?
Yes, of course. Ai mo lava na patalo fatu ile pa ia pon mamalu Samoa. Lo mau mai le fasalanga ile nei tula o le aso ia e fatalo fatu i o tato tinama tamama tutua ia o e fo i o lo ia fo fenga luenga te loile nei taimi o lo ta nei le fa i le afi Samoa ia o lo fenga o lo ia fo i la le to atele i fal fenga luenga ai ia fatalo fatu fo i la o fionga Kesila ia male mamalu fo i o le so Iliganoa Samoa Capital Radio. Thank you so much for having me. I feel very honored and privileged to be here and, have this dialogue with you. But I guess I'll get back to the question since we've started. What inspired me to become a teacher and educator, and then, of course, how it led into the Miss Samoa pageant. For me, as you may know, I grew up in Samoa. I was born and raised in Vaisala, Sava'i, with my parents and my grandmothers, especially. And so I was raised in a way and in a space where identity, community, and service were deeply intertwined into my upbringing as a young Tamaitai Samoa. And so I learned very early on that my ambitions and what I make of myself is also part of my responsibility to others and to my family, of course, to my village and to my community. And so education for me is a pathway, I guess you could call it, not just for my personal growth, but also as a tool to uplift others. So upon coming back to Samoa, I guess just a little background on that. As I've said, sa wa ngatu lava mai lo lai titi I Samoa nei I le Vaisala preschool, and then I went on to Mota'a preschool, Apia primary school, Samoa College, foundation at the National University of Samoa. Ia whabanuia ina fo'i ia whaftai ai le tuai whamanianga na mawai ava no scholarship e mawai ava no e watuai fo'i fafo e a o ngai Australia. Yeah, and so from there, I was fortunate to have received my tertiary education at the University of Adelaide, where I received my Bachelor's of Philosophy, Politics and Economics. And then coming back home to Samoa, education again was always an empowering space for me. That's how I saw it, how education can be very empowering and how it can open doors for our young people. And when the opportunity was presented to me to teach at the National University, I saw it as a calling. And, God's timing and God's plan for everybody. I never expected myself to be a teacher. I never saw myself being a teacher. As a matter of fact, far from it. But again, I saw it as a way for me to connect with young people. And I had always been passionate about youth development. And when I was given the opportunity, I felt there was no better place for me work directly with young people and to empower young people than to be in the classroom with them, obviously instilling knowledge within them, but also just being able to connect and share that. So and then pageantry, 2 years later, I'd been teaching at the National University for 2 years. And again, pageantry was an extension of that same purpose for me to advocate and to be representation of what a Samoan Tamaitai is like, but also be able to serve my community in all these different ways. And it's a platform. And I do want to emphasize that the Miss Sāmoa platform, it's a platform. At the end of the day, it's just a platform, and it's how you use it that matters. And for me, it's about amplifying issues and using the platform to amplify issues that I care about and to represent Samoa with pride and especially authenticity. And that's what that's sort of the backstory of that.
Answered my next question, but I will still ask it. Thank you so much for that beautiful experience growing up in the islands. You were a teacher at the National University of Samoa before being crowned Miss Sāmoa. How important is your role as a teacher to you? And what do you hope to instill in the minds of our young people when we talk about education with regards to your experience growing up?
Yeah, of course. Wow. Being a teacher, as I said, isn't something that I had necessarily planned out for myself, but it's one of the roles that I hold closest to my heart. And I say this because it's actually just last night I was at an event it was a validation workshop, and we had the Lefionga Francis, who's CEO of the Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment there, and it was about youth in the climate change space and in environmental protection space. And I was very proud to see 3 of my students there. And it just made me the proudest ever, just to see them there being engaged in these types of programs. It was always something that I had encouraged for my students. And so to me, the importance of being a teacher and what it means to be a teacher is, of course, to deliver the content and the course material that you're teaching. But for me, it's really about shaping the mindsets of our young people and nurturing confidence. And it's something in my classroom, at least, and how I teach, it was always to speak their language. I would use the term speak their language. And in saying that, it's really trying to connect with them and instilling in our young people. And I guess some of my goals in the classroom was to instill within my students the courage to ask questions. I had always encouraged them to ask questions and to really dig into their curiosity, but also to challenge systems and to see themselves as capable leaders. I feel that in today's world with our young people now, there's young people who do not necessarily have the support systems to build them up as young leaders. And so coming from Samoa and from, Guapak and from Savai'i, where opportunities can, oftentimes feel limited, I really wanted my students to know that their voices matter and that their dreams are valid. And, whether they choose to serve locally within Samoa or globally, it's something that they can achieve as long as they put in the hard work to do it. And again, and I think I've mentioned this a couple of times, that, knowledge is power. But especially when it's shared. And that's something that I personally and truly and genuinely believe in. And so to the importance of being a teacher, you work closely, you have the space where you can really connect and make a difference in the lives of our young people. And of course, you have the home where it's the fundamental, the foundational learning and classroom of a young person. But then you have the school where students spend up to 8 hours of their lives and 6 to 8 hours of their lives, which is a significant amount of time. So again, it's just one of the entities and one of the institutions that can really make a difference in our people's lives, and especially our young people.
Paftai lava. You touched on your returning to Samoa and serving the country from Australia. I want to ask, as an Australian award scholar graduating with a Bachelor of Philosophy, Politics and Economics, you returned home to serve and you continue to do so in various spaces, including the Miss Sāmoa platform. How important is service or tautua and giving back to the community for you?
Sorry, Kissy, I just cut out there for a little second. Can I just ask that you repeat that question, please?
On your returning to Samoa and serving the country, and I wanted to ask, as an Australian award scholar graduating with a Bachelor of Philosophy, Politics and Economics, you returned to Samoa to serve our country, and you continue to do so in various spaces such as the Miss Sāmoa platform, to name a few. And I'm wondering, how important is service or tautua and giving back to the community for you?
Okay, so it cut out again, but I caught that last bit. Is it, how important is it to give back to the community?
Is giving
Yes,
to community for you?
absolutely. For us in Samoa, we grow up as Samoan people. We grow up how we see it as communal. Ile o langa lava yol palangi e alu lava tangata e faile me manawai. And so ile a oina fo yo o palalangi. E te matua ne loa sfulvalu tau sanga so elo le me te no fuai so ngal wenga ia ma me fa pena failo lava ia ainga. Malo lava fo ia o langa. A ole tanga mo lava ia. E se lava lona tupuanga, e se fo ilona o ina mai lona lava la ititi. Ia i tātou, male whainga leo langa o le tangata Samoa. Te o lailo ainga, e te whainga luenga, ia e whai le leila wa onga, ia le leila wa onga le leila nga luenga. Ona e toi fo i maila ia, e tau tuolo ainga. And so the point I'm making here is that it's service and tautua is at the core of who I am and who we are as Samoan people. And so it's something that we've always lived by. It's something that has always been taught through generations. And so for me, returning home after my studies was intentional. By the time that my studies were about to finish, my family was going through a rough time with the health of my father. My father is 72 this year, and at that time it was quite a difficult time to navigate with his health. He's doing much better now, and so at that time, for me, upon finishing my studies, I had always known that if this is the case, I'm coming back home. I'm coming back home to take care of my parents and my father, especially, of course, and to give back. And so, other than that personal stuff, of course, being able to reinvent what I had gained upon my studies overseas back into our communities was also something that was always sort of key to, I guess, my sort of understanding and my upbringing. So for me, it was definitely about service in that way. It's always something that's been instilled within me from a very young age, from within the family. And then, of course, it's about trying to make an impact and contributing meaningfully to society, and really ensuring that, I guess, the next generation has more opportunities than we did, because from my own personal experience, as I've shared, you really had to make do with what you have. And, you also hear the stories of your parents, and I'm sure your parents have also shared about what their lives were like back then. And it's really up to us to make a difference in our society and to our people. And so that was really the case for me. And if anything, coming back home to serve my people, Samoa, and its people especially, has been, probably the most crucial part of my journey.
Paftai Lava, thank you so much. Miss Sāmoa, you were selected as a board member of the Samoa Youth Advisory Board and a national youth delegate in the Commonwealth in 2024. Can you explain the purpose of these Commonwealth committees and what is the overall mission of the Youth Advisory Board for the Pacific?
Excellent question. Whakatau for that, Kesila. The Samoa Youth Advisory Board, and then my role as the National Youth Delegate to the Commonwealth Youth Councils. The purpose of these committees is to amplify youth voices in policy discussions, particularly around the issues that affect youth. So like climate change, gender equality, economic development and youth development. And so really the mission is to ensure that policies affecting young people are shaped with young people. And so an example of this, the Samoa Youth Advisory Board were key contributors to the Samoa National Youth Policy, which is currently awaiting endorsement by Cabinet and has thankfully been passed on to Cabinet for approval. And so really, as we all know, they are guided by policies, and it requires these frameworks for a lot of these to be done. And so the purpose of these groups and at the core of these groups is in developing these and having a say in these, I guess, decision-making processes. Another thing that we are looking at in the upcoming months, we also have the Pacific Youth Ministers meeting, which will bring together ministers from across the region and from across the Pacific to discuss issues, youth or issues affecting youth within the Pacific, and also look at solutions for that. And so with that, we also have the Pacific Youth Summit in September. And so this is all put together by the Ministry of Women, Community and Social Development here in Samoa. And so, again, all important discussions to do with policies, but also it's about identifying opportunities to develop our youths, whether that's be through workshops or trainings or any capacity building. We also now being worked on is the Samoa Youth Engagement framework for environmental issues with the Ministry of Environment, Natural Resources and Environment. And so this will provide opportunities for funding for climate-related projects for youth around Samoa, and that'll be open towards the end of April. And I guess lastly, it's really about platforms that engage the youth in all these very, very important discussions that affect them. So, yes.
With regards to the Youth Commonwealth, thank you so much for your contribution and your service in that sector. I want to ask you, what can you say about the growing influences that are affecting minds and decision-making of our young people, our Tupulaga Talavo, with regards to depression, AI? I know that AI influences growing and increasing at a very fast. I don't know if here in New Zealand, but I do know and I believe in Samoa, peer pressure, drugs, technology, things of the sort. And how can our community stand united against these issues?
Of course, young people today are navigating a really, really a very complex world, I'd say. As you mentioned, from the use of the rapid rise of AI and technology, mental health challenges with drugs being a pertinent issue in our country and across our region, it really poses a huge risk on our young people. When it comes to the discussion on drugs, most recently it's been found that some of the the youngest that's been found with drugs here in Samoa is 12 years old, I believe, which is quite concerning, because when I think about it that way, that's me in primary school right before going into college. And so these are all issues that we are sort of navigating locally, and of course, I'm sure in the diasporic community as well. But I feel that one of the key factors why this is happening is the lack of guidance on how to navigate them. Our young people now need a lot more guidance than anything, and they need a lot of great support. They require a lot of support, and as a community, as you've said, how we can work together, it really does require a collective response. To be quite frank, that means stronger support systems at home. I feel a lot of these issues can be solved from within the home, and I've advocated, really largely about this, about how the solutions to all of these issues, the holistic approach to it, I guess, really needs to start from within the home, from within the parents, and how we can do this from within the home. I don't know about other families, but I'll speak to my own, and how important it is to have the intergenerational learning from parent to child on the dinner table, having those dinner table discussions, and making sure, just making sure that not restricting our young people from having a social life, but having some control and discipline over those, so that we are not allowing them to just roam freely with very little guidance. And then more open conversations in school as well. An experience that I can speak to is at the National University of Samoa. There is a program that was started by my colleagues, and I was fortunate to have co-facilitated while I was teaching. It's called Peer-to-Peer Initiative. Now, the Peer-to-Peer Initiative brings together a group of young people, students, who run the group with mentorship and guidance from us, the teachers. And so every single week there is a topic that is discussed. So one week we're talking about drugs, and then we do activities around that. We bring over the Samoa Victim Support to have talks there. We brought over the police, and Ministry of Justice, for example. And even one time when we were hosting UN Youth Day, we had over the commissioner at the time, just sharing on the impacts of and the consequences of what happens when you get involved in these cases. And so just understanding that there is support available for the students, and having more open conversations about this, but being in their face about it, because we can't expect for anything to change if we are having this conversation once. And it has to be constant, and it has to be consistent, so that it is instilled within them. And then, of course, just ensuring that there are safe spaces for our young people to express themselves. The caliber of young people nowadays, I have found, is quite different. And so the types of support systems, I feel they require more of that, I guess, soft-natured talking to them type of situation to really get them to share. And then in the issues of AI, as you've mentioned, really equipping them with digital literacy and emotional resilience, I feel, is something that's so important. And it's part of the reason why I'm so passionate about the issue of technology-facilitated gender-based violence, which is something that I highlighted in the Miss Pacific Islands pageant. And it's an issue that's not nearly talked about enough, but it affects a lot of our vulnerable groups, including our youth, and especially our women and females, who are predominantly affected when it comes to TFGBV in this case. And so there's even issues with the rise of AI now as well. Try to word this in the most respectable way as I possibly could, but AI is now also being used to create pornographic material. And so this is very concerning with our young people, especially being victims to this. And it's something that must be talked about. That our people need to be aware of. That is not allowed. That is against the law for you to do that, and that if found, there are real consequences to that. So I think our people also need to understand, even young people need to understand that there are consequences to a lot of their actions. And yes, I think in a nutshell, there's so many things that are affecting our youth, and even the cause and effects of this and how it leads them to make those decisions. But again, it's a lot more complex than I can share within a few minutes.
I love it. Thank you. I know in regards to pornographic materials, as you've mentioned, that people are now creating with AI. Te loa te leo moti noa pe o ye se tūla whono I lalo I whangaina o le AI e whai e I atua I ngā ia so tūla whono because AI is, quite recent. A ni tūla whono, that we can endorse under AI for using AI materials to create these pornographic materials and things of the sort that are against the law. But thank you so much for mentioning that. What are your thoughts on cyberbullying, and how can social media platforms better address or prevent cyberbullying in regards to the roles of parents, schools? We address this ongoing issue.
Okay. Yes. Cyberbullying, yes, is probably one of the most pressing issues facing our young people, because it really does follow them everywhere. It doesn't just stop at the school where it usually happens. And so it's unfortunate that now we have this platform that is an extension or that is being used as an extension of the treatment that they're getting at school. And of course, we have, social media platforms themselves need to take greater responsibility in enforcing stronger protections and accountability measures around that. But there is, the concerning part of that is, for example, ile Meta, le lalo le Facebook, male Instagram and other platforms. They have words that they, what's the word, that they sort of block out, so that when it's used, it's flagged as bullying. However, they don't necessarily pick up if the bullying is happening in the Samoan language, for example. And so there are always limitations to social media platforms taking, accountability and responsibility for that. But for our people, it's quite concerning to see as well, because we often say we are guided by the values of respect and love. But somehow that does not translate when we go into social media platforms, and I don't necessarily see where that comes in, and where we lose sight of those values. And perhaps it's the example that is being set, from people of authority. So I feel, and this is my personal sort of view on this, is that our leaders and people within positions of authority play and can make a huge impact in this, in modeling good behaviors online. And so people, influencers as well, we all know what influencers are. They have a lot of followers, people like to copy them. And so again, it's the same case. It's about modeling good behavior online. But beyond that, I feel that the role of the parents and the teachers and the schools is critical in identifying areas and instances of bullying, especially cyberbullying online. I know, and I have heard of schools in Samoa who take a very active role in identifying instances of bullying if amalusia or if amalusia lava I te tonua aunga nei ia le lipoti o tamaitie o lo whaia nei tūlanga I ngo benga te whailangi, because at the end of the day it's not safe, you know, even for especially for the victims, and we really must teach empathy wherever we can, both online and offline, because to me, it's not a digital issue. It's still a human one. It's human behavior and how we behave. But some of the things that I've been advocating for, that I'm working towards as well, you know, over the past months and moving forward, is stronger reporting pathways, because at the moment ele o yai ia se vaenga e lipoti ai ia tūlanga whapea pe a o yai se si we whaalongo atu o lo yai se si o lo whaia nei tūlanga o lo awhia I lo tangata. The only point of contact in this case is at the moment is the police, and so just ensuring that there are reporting pathways for that, and ensuring that these are instilled within the frameworks and the policies to protect our people. So again, cyberbullying, another very complex issue, but thankfully there are reforms that are currently being worked on to replace and really enhance the current policies.
I want to I want to ask you about your experience at the Miss Pacific Islands pageant earlier this year. How has your experience in pageantry contributed to your personal and professional development, if you may, Whamunmone?
Yes. Well, the Miss Pacific Island pageant was an interesting one. I'll be honest and say that it was extremely challenging for me personally, and so it really was for me, at least, a test of resilience. I guess you could say the days were long, and you know, you were faced with the task of representing a whole people in a whole country, and there was a lot of expectations on how to show up, how to talk, how to be, how to walk, and in every facet of the representation. So it was challenging in that way, but very fulfilling in the sense that it brought together very strong, passionate women from across the region, each with their own stories and advocacies as well. So I was very happy and privileged to have connected with my pageant sisters. I had gotten really, really close to Miss Cook Islands there and had made a friend, you know, with Siosina and Miss Tonga as well, and all of the girls as well. So it was really those bonds, those relationships that you take away from that. But on a personal level, just being enveloped by the love and friendliness of the Fijian people, it's next to none. I'll say that the Fijians, you know, you'll find that the experience, having been there a couple of times now, you know, you just are really enveloped with love. I gained a family there as well, with Loata and Dili and Gili. And so all those things are I guess that for my personal development, those are the things that I look to. But in terms of my professional development, just intercultural communication and it really strengthened my ability to communicate across cultures, and also strengthened my understanding of regional issues. Part of preparation towards the Miss Pacific Islands is research on a range of different issues, and that was some of the biggest things that I had put in and invested a lot of time in, was my research on regional issues, and then really just pushed me to grow, not just, you know, as a Samoan woman, and not just as a representative of Samoa, but also as a Pacific woman. And I'm very, very proud of that. I'm proud to say that I'm Samoan, and I'm proud to say that I am Pacific Islander. And so I guess those were the highlights for me.
I love it, Malo. What were some of the challenges that I know you mentioned a few before, but what were some of the challenges that you and your pageant sisters faced during the Miss Pacific Islands pageant? And what do you think is the biggest misconception that a lot of people and our Pacific Islands people may have about pageantry?
Yes, as I mentioned, one of the biggest challenges was the emotional and mental pressure. Uh, constantly being in the public eye, and as I mentioned, you are representing a whole country. You're representing a whole people. So there's so much expectation on this one person to carry all of this, but people forget to realize, and people don't tend to not see what happens behind the scenes, and the preparations that go into that. And so for me, again, one of the biggest challenges was the emotional pressure. And of course, in terms of the preparation, I was very fortunate to have had a great support system by my team and the Onomia Productions team, who were just amazing in every single way, and who supported me and uplifted me in the times I needed it most. And during the pageant as well, another huge challenge was the lack of sleep. You really don't get any sleep. The moment it starts, it's bang, 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 you're on it. And you just, whenever you get the opportunity to close your eyes and doze off, you kind of take it. And so for me, my sleep was mainly in the bus when we're going between events. And so you make do with what you've got. But again, as I mentioned, it's a test of resilience, and it really builds yourself up as a young person and as a young woman coming out of that. I feel that you're just never the same afterwards. You just have this new or renewed I guess value for people who go into these platforms. But I guess a misconception of pageantry is, I saw it in a comment section of a news article recently, of people saying that this is vain, and that it's superficial and things like that. I feel that's a common misconception of it, because when you really experience it, you then come to realize that the reality of pageantry is a lot of discipline, a lot of resilience, a lot of intelligence, and a whole lot of purpose. And it requires someone who wants and feels the need and has that dire want to serve their people, to push through in this platform. And I have huge admiration for people and all the queens and the Miss Sāmoas and Miss, who have come before me and have taken on this role, because it takes a lot of work, it takes a lot of preparation, it takes a lot of advocacy that people don't always see. And so again, so much respect for anybody who chooses this path within their lives.
Thank you so much. How do you think the Miss Sāmoa and the Pacific Islands pageant can empower women and youth and the people of Samoa and the Pacific in general in promoting body positivity and a positive mindset?
Oh, body image and body and mindset. That's always an interesting one. When I'll share a personal experience. When I started off Even prior to the Miss Sāmoa platform, the conversation was that I was too short. And I say that, with so much pride as somebody who's short, and there's nothing I can change about that, really. And that is the case for most people, right? There's a lot of things about your physical being and your physical characteristics that you can't change. Your height, of course, your weight you can change. Your skin color you cannot change, and those are the things that people often look at, right? Not tall enough, not white enough, many different things that people not pretty enough. There's so many different conversations that come up when we're talking about and sort of linking pageantry to body image and mindset. But pageantry within the Pacific, I have seen, does have the power to redefine those beauty standards, because as we've seen throughout the Pacific, that pageantry isn't necessarily about beauty or just about beauty. It's a lot to do with purpose and with intelligence more so than anything else. And so as we've seen with Pacific pageantry, with Miss Sāmoa, with Miss Pacific Islands, it's about confidence, authenticity, intelligence, understanding your culture, understanding the regional issues around you, and cultural pride. And so for me, within this platform, I have not directly, but I have indirectly and want to say that intelligence is beautiful. And you don't necessarily have to be 6 feet tall, or 4 feet tall, or you don't have to be white or brown or whatever, or yellow, whatever your skin color may be, to be a beauty queen or to be anything. It's not about how you look, and it's more so about what you have to offer to people. And within these platforms as well, which are, as we all know, very influential platforms, it's very important to use these platforms to, highlight to our young people, especially in our young women, that to embrace who they are. Rather than trying to fit into unrealistic ideals. And so the main message through this platform that I want to put through, as I've mentioned in the very beginning, is authenticity more than anything. And so, yes, that's how I see pageantry and body image.
I love it. Thank you, Miss Sāmoa, for that beautiful and inspiring answer. I want to ask about the opportunities that the Miss Sāmoa platform has provided for you in reaching wider audiences and raising awareness with regards to social and economic issues that you are passionate about. Can you share briefly about this, please?
Yes, of course. Well, as I mentioned, the Miss Sāmoa it's a platform, and it's a platform that has allowed me to engage and advocate on many issues, including gender-based violence, youth empowerment, and climate justice. And so one of the most recent examples that I can think about is my participation and involvement as the youth ambassador to the Commission on the Status of Women, or CSW 70, that was held in New York recently. And I was able to engage in dialogues and discussions around youth issues and be able to share a perspective from the Pacific. The unfortunate reality of these platforms and of these forums is that there's very little voice of the Pacific in these platforms. And so when I was in New York, actually, during that exact dialogue, and where I was involved, there were a few Pacific participants, one of whom was part of the panelists from the Solomon Islands. But other than that, she was the only voice that had represented her island and the Pacific in these forums amongst over 100 participants from all around the world. And so, that's just one of the opportunities. And again, I saw it as an opportunity to give voice to the Pacific youth and Samoan youth on the issues that we are facing, on the discussions of justice, because the theme of this year's CSW was on justice. So it was bringing light to those issues, because again, it's very important to engage in these dialogues, because these are the conversations that will shape policy reforms and frameworks that will eventually affect our young people and how we're better supported. So it's about redefining those issues and ensuring that we have a say in those decision-making process. So I guess those are that's one of the opportunities that's been given to me. And then, of course, I was very privileged to speak at the Mafutanga also felt funny to my time recently over the past week, and that was amazing. It was the first time where you se poto nga whapea ale po se mafutanga foi ale tamaitai also felt funny al mitstisi ia o mai ia tamaitai mitstisi mai America o Hawaii, New Zealand, Australia, ia Samoa name America Samoa ia tu fatasi ia mo fai fo ia titilo fo inisi o wala atina ia tamaitai to tonu lava lotu, which is important. I think spiritual learning is a key component of who we are, but it really helps towards the development of our young people and of a lot of those issues. And I understand from Le Mafutanga, they talked about teen pregnancy, which again, another important issue to be talked about, amongst other things. So there's all those other things. But on top of that, other opportunities from the Miss Sāmoa platform that has helped me engage and advocate on other issues. It's really given me and put me into spaces where I guess I wouldn't otherwise be in. For instance, I was able to meet with UNDP over the past week to share about our youth issues and see pathways that we can support TFGBV, which is something that, again, is within discussions and the policies are being written about this as we speak. So many opportunities, but all things that, again, I am grateful for.
Lastly, my last question for you before we conclude our youth program this afternoon. What do you hope to instill in the minds and hearts of our Tupulaga who are listening to this, and young Tamaitai Samoa who may be interested and are planning to enter? And what do you hope for in general for the Samoa and the Pacific?
Yes, I guess to our young people and I guess aspiring Tamaitai Samoa who want to enter into the Miss Sāmoa pageant, my key message has always been about authenticity. It's that oftentimes people want to put you into a box of who they want you to be, but you come as your own person. You come with your own knowledge. You come with your own upbringing, your education, your background. You're already someone that can really make a difference in your own way, and it's just about making it clear that you who you are as you are is enough and worthy of any opportunity that comes your way, and to make sure that you enter those spaces with confidence and with purpose, and to use your voice and to stand in your truth and to never underestimate the power that you hold within you. But as you would know, I'm also somebody who is very passionate and I truly believe in education. And, for the youth of Samoa and the Pacific, education is something that I will always encourage for our young people in every way, whether that be through formal education or informal education. It's about developing yourself and really growing that understanding and knowledge will really get you far and will open doors for you that you wouldn't otherwise be in. And so, yes, and then I more holistically, our culture is very important. Our cultural teachings is something that has sustained our people for many generations, as well as our parents. And to maintaining those values, me manana o ina mai tato ilo tato lai titi o me fuina tatawana to my white. And if we stick to those, we can really make a difference in today's world. So angaliloto stai matua ya mumea malava hapena. And I think that's really all there is from me. But for your time and for having me. You do such incredible work as well, having all these important conversations with our youth. So I commend you for that, and I acknowledge you for that, and I hope that our youth turn out to be such great leaders as yourselves, and of course others within our community who do so very well